To be free, truly free, is not to become something, nor to attain some heroic conquest over life, nor to ascend into a rarefied state of spiritual perfection. Freedom is startlingly ordinary. It is simply the moment you stop holding on. You see, most people imagine freedom as something gained, a possession earned after years of struggle. They picture it as a plateau reached only after exhausting effort, a summit at the end of some punishing journey. But that kind of freedom is always tomorrow. And tomorrow is a most unreliable fellow. It never quite arrives. It dances at the horizon like a mirage, always shimmering just beyond the next self-improvement, the next resolution, the next act of self-control. Yet the astounding truth is that freedom is not the prize waiting at the finish line. It is the instant you stop racing. Like when you're clinging to a rope above the water, your muscles shaking, your breath stretched thin as violin strings. You think you must climb higher to be safe, that letting go will be fatal. But the moment you finally release your grip, you discover that the lake below was gentle all along. The safety you strained for was already there, waiting beneath your fear. The strain was the suffering. The holding on was the prison. But let us be very honest. The reason we cling is not because we love tension, but because we do not trust the fall. We distrust life. We behave like a tight fist that refuses to soften. A seed cannot sprout until its shell cracks. A fist cannot feel until it opens. And so living becomes a project of guarding, resisting, armoring, reinforcing, forever trying to nail jelly to the wall of permanence. But permanence is a myth told by fear to quiet itself. Everything moves. Everything breathes. Even the stone dissolves into sand if you wait long enough. The tension, you see, is never between you and the world. It is always between you and what you think the world ought to be. We are all, in some hidden corner of ourselves, holding our breath, hoping life will finally align with our preferred script. But life is not a machine to be managed. It is a tide. One does not direct the tide, one learns to float upon it. Control is not freedom. Control is a beautiful disguise for panic. And if you look carefully, you will notice that every form of suffering is a kind of contraction, a tightening around experience, a refusal to allow it to pass through. Anxiety is the clutching of tomorrow. Regret is the clutching of yesterday. And ego, that little custodian of identity, is simply the clenching around a story. This is who I am. This is who I must remain. But the truth is far lighter than that. You are not a statue chiseled from stone. You are a process, a dance, a ripple in the stream of becoming. The more you tighten your sense of me, the more brittle you feel. Like glass, perfectly defined, yet so easily shattered. Water, on the other hand, breaks nothing and is broken by nothing. To be free is to become water. Not limp, not resigned, but unresisting, flowing, alive, trusting movement rather than fighting it. Freedom is not a matter of controlling life, but cooperating with it, not as a slave to fate, but as a dancer whose steps are given meaning only because the music moves through them. We think freedom means no limitation, but that would be like a melody without silence, endless notes droning into chaos. Freedom is not the absence of form, it is the effortless fitting into form, the way wind slips through chimes and makes them sing. You begin to see that letting go is not a sacrifice, it is an unveiling. When you release your grip, you discover that the current was carrying you anyway. You were never steering the river. You were only wearing out your arms pretending to. But why is it so difficult to trust this? Because the mind is forever looking for solid ground. It wants guarantees, assurances, a cosmic insurance policy. The mind wishes life would sit still long enough to be mastered. Yet life is like flame. Touch it and it vanishes. Try to bottle it and it dies. And so the art of freedom is not the art of conquest, but the art of surrender, which is the most misunderstood word in the human language. People think surrender means collapse, giving up, lying flat on the mat of defeat. But true surrender is not falling to the floor. It is falling into the world, into participation, into the recognition that you are not an intruder in this universe, but a native expression of it.
The tree does not apologize for leaning in the wind. The wave does not apologize for rising and falling. Yet the human being constantly apologizes to life by refusing to trust himself as part of its unfolding. When you stop holding on, truly stop holding on, you do not shrink. You expand. You stop defending and begin being. And in that spaciousness, you start noticing something remarkable. Existence is not against you. The ground under your feet has been holding you since the moment you were born. The breath moves in and out of you without any command. Your heart drums its rhythm without awaiting permission. All of life is already letting go, continuously, effortlessly, and you are simply invited to notice that you belong to this same movement. The only thing that refuses to let go is the image of yourself trying to be in control. Where does it go when you loosen your grip? What dissolves? Not you, only the tension around you. And what remains? Something weightless, something real, something that doesn't need defending.
The paradox of freedom is that you do not create it, you cease obstructing it. It is like sunlight through a window. The light has always been shining. It is the curtains that were drawn. You do not invent warmth. You only stop shading yourself from it. Letting go is not an act of doing. It is the dropping of what was never necessary in the first place. But one must look closely here, for the mind immediately asks, how do I let go? As though there must be a technique, a ritual, a strategy. Yet a technique is still a holding on to the hope of release. It is like asking, how do I fall asleep? The more you try, the more awake you become. Letting go is not gripping a new method, it is realizing you never needed one. It is the instant your hand relaxes because it no longer believes it must clinch. Freedom comes not from effort, but from insight, from seeing clearly that what you were gripping was never keeping you safe, only keeping you tense. Consider a bird perched upon a branch in a storm. It is not safe because the branch is sturdy, it is safe because it can fly. The real security is not the branch of certainty, but the wings of trust. And so long as you believe the branch must never shake, you cannot know the freedom of the sky. So much of human anxiety is born from this refusal to trust the wings. We prefer the branch, even as it cracks beneath us. We bargain with reality, as if saying, if I hold tight enough, life will spare me uncertainty. But uncertainty is not a flaw in existence, it is its very essence. A world without uncertainty would also be a world without discovery, surprise, creativity, or growth. To remove uncertainty is to remove the pulse of life. Thus, to cling is to turn the ocean into ice. Stable, yes, but dead. To release is to become liquid again. When you stop guarding yourself against change, you do not drown. You remember you are water. And then you begin to notice something else. Every moment is already letting go for you. You do not cling to a breath once you exhale it. You do not cling to a sound once it fades. You do not cling to a thought once it drifts. Life is perpetually dissolving into the next unfolding, and you, even without trying, are participating in that same dissolution. The only illusion is that you are ever separate from it. The person you were last year vanished without ceremony. The child you once were evaporated without burial, and yet here you stand, not destroyed, but renewed. 1,000 versions of yourself burned through and reformed without your permission. This is the silent mercy of existence. It does not wait for your consent to liberate you. But the ego wants to script immortality. Not the immortality of spirit, which is fluid and formless, but the immortality of the mask, the story of me, preserved like a specimen in a jar, untouchable by the world. Yet, what a lonely immortality that would be. A museum of a self, forever preserved, forever motionless.
True aliveness is inseparable from vulnerability, for to be alive is to be permeable. Water flows only where there is openness. Music enters only where there is a listening ear. Love breathes only where there is unguardedness. And so the deepest freedom is not command over life, but intimacy with it. The courage to be touched by the world, to be moved, to be changed. That is why letting go is not an escape from life, but a deeper participation in it. You do not retreat from the river, you merge with its current, trusting that wherever it bends not away from you, but as you. People imagine surrender means that life will take something from them, as though existence were a thief waiting at the door. But life is not waiting to rob you, it is waiting to unclench you, to return you from hardness back to harmony. What you lose in letting go was never nourishment, only the stone in your shoe. When you release, you do not become homeless within the universe, you discover you are always at home. And then the most extraordinary thing happens. What once felt like falling becomes floating. The descent becomes depth. The unknown becomes spacious rather than threatening. You begin to sense that the same intelligence that moves the tides is moving you, that the same unseen hand guiding the seasons is carrying your unfolding. Letting go is simply remembering you belong to what holds you. No effort is required to be cradled by gravity. No struggle is required for the heart to keep time. Existence has been supporting you since your first breath and will long after your last. So when you stop holding on, you are not left empty-handed, you are left unburdened. And in that unburdening, you feel light again, like a breeze passing through the world rather than a fortress resisting it. The world is no longer something to brace against, but something to dance with. To be free is not to grip the reins, but to trust the gallop. Not to wall yourself off, but to become porous enough for wonder to enter. For what is freedom if not the willingness to fall and discover you were floating all along?
And so I leave you with this. When the wave stops trying to stand apart from the sea, it remembers it is the sea. When you stop holding on, you remember you were never separate, never adrift, never unsheltered. You were the freedom you were seeking, waiting for the moment you would notice.